Trust is an extremely important thing when it comes to building relationships with other people. Often this can take years and years to build, but I want to let you know that there is a way that you can actually build trust in a much shorter period of time. So in today's video, I want to share the 5 steps that I use as an occupational therapist in the medical field on how I build rapport and trust with my patients in a very short amount of time. So no more wasting time, and let's get into this video. So before we get into the steps, just to give you guys some context, I work as an occupational therapist, and my job essentially is to help people regain their independence after any sort of traumatic events. So you can imagine, say you broke a bone, right? And of course you're going to do all your daily activities like going to the restroom, getting dressed, driving a car, walking around, maybe just taking care of your kids, all this sort of stuff. Well, my job essentially is to help you out with the process by figuring out strategies, figuring out a way for you to get stronger, so that way you can regain your independence. And what I often find is a lot of these individuals that I work with, they had a lot of independence stripped from them because of this injury. So they're often frustrated, they're feeling vulnerable, they're feeling weak. So the process of gaining their trust is something that I have perfected over the course of 5+ years through trial and error, through experimenting with how I communicate with them, what I do, how I react. And these are some of the steps that I take to actually build that trust in a short amount of time, to get them to trust me and to allow me to work with them in getting them better. So step number 1 to build more trust with other people is to simply put yourself in another person's shoes. In other words, you want to be more empathetic. Now, I think this is such an important step because us as human beings, we're inherently selfish. We all want things that's going to benefit us. We're trying to advance our own agenda. So by simply taking the time to imagine how things are on the other perspective is going to be a huge game changer. You want to anticipate how the other person is feeling, what they're trying to solve, what are the problems they're going through, and this is instantly going to build a rapport with the other person. And whenever I meet a patient for the first time, we go through something called an evaluation process, where I ask a bunch of questions and all I do is simply listen to them. Now, this is such a powerful tool because by listening to someone, you're gathering information on what matters to them. So for me, I'm going to ask some questions pertaining to what they need to do in their daily lives. How are they getting to the restroom? What's their home setup? How are they getting dressed? What is important to them? What do they need to do in their everyday lives? Do they drive? Do they have a partner? Do they need to take care of their kids? And asking all these questions is going to give me information on what they place importance on. And on the other end, they're going to feel like, oh, this person is actually curious what's going on in my life. They're trying to solve my problem, and they're going to let their guard down. They're going to trust you a little bit more. So by simply having a little more empathy, by listening to the other person, you're going to start building the rapport. You don't want to approach any sort of conversation telling people what you run right off the bat. What I notice a lot of newbie therapists do, or just people in general, is that they go into a conversation and they simply fire away on questions on what is going to benefit them, on what's going to help them instead. But instead, you want to anticipate what is troubling them. So the first question that I always lead with is, how you doing today? Do you have any pain? And just this simple switch, instead of going straight into my evaluation process, is going to make them feel like, oh, you actually care what I'm going through, whether I'm feeling pain, whether I'm having any difficulties, instead of simply just thinking like, oh, you're just another person in the hospital who's trying to do their job. So after you're able to build a little rapport with them by listening, by showing that you care, the next step number 2, to build a little more trust with someone else, is to say we instead of I. Now again, human beings are all very selfish creatures. It's all about I'm chasing my own goal, I'm trying to accomplish this. But you want to flip the script by letting them know that you're on their team. You're trying to accomplish the exact same thing that they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes this might not be 100% true, but you want to help tie what you're trying to accomplish together with what they're trying to accomplish. So for example, if someone's telling me like, hey, I broke my leg recently, I'm having a lot of difficulties getting to the restroom, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, I'm worried about this, I'm worried how I'm going to take care of my kids, then I, on the other hand, are going to say like, you know what, I know that's all really difficult, but we are going to try to figure this out. So just by this simple sentence, letting them know like, hey, I'm on your side, I'm trying to figure things out with you, and we're going to get through this together, is going to instantly build a little more trust with them. And this is simply by the process of just interacting with them. You're not really doing anything just yet. You're just letting them know that I get what you're saying and we're going to try to figure it out together. You want to make it a little more lighthearted in the sense that, we're going to do it together and I respect what you are able to accomplish as well. So that there is step number 2. I personally feel that the majority of problems that arise in the world happens because of a lack of communication. People do not know how to verbalize what they want, what they need, and they expect people to simply read their mind. This leads, of course, to a lot of miscommunication, a lot of disappointment, yada yada yada, all this kind of stuff. So for step number 3, you want to be clear and sincere. You know, this actually reminds me of a really funny clip of this programmer dad trying to play a game with his 2 kids, where they had to write the instructions down on how to spread peanut butter on a piece of toast. But while they're playing the game, they found that if they're not clear enough with their instructions, their dad would do all these really silly maneuvers. Like the kid would write, put the knife in the peanut butter jar and then spread the peanut butter on the toast. And the dad would in fact toss the whole knife into the jar and use his hands to scoop up the peanut butter instead. And this would drive the kids absolutely crazy. But my point is simply that to be clear and concise, to be sincere with what you're trying to tell them is going to make the whole process of connecting with them on building trust a lot easier. So to give you guys an example from my experience being a therapist is that, you know, whenever I collected the information, I tell them like, hey, we're a team, I'm going to try to help you. My next step then is to let them know what I'm going to do for them, what I'm planning in our session, what I'm going to do to help make things a lot easier for them. So that way they have a clear understanding of what's going to happen. So pretty much what I would do is I'll lay out the whole plan for them, like, all right, you're most likely going to be here for 2 to 3 weeks, and what we're going to do is we're going to focus on making sure you can get back to taking care of yourself, you can go to the restroom on your own, you can get dressed by yourself, and we're going to try to make sure that we control your pain as best as we can. And this helps them visualize how things are going to go, and this kind of clears up the fog, right? Because when you're meeting someone for the first time, you don't really know each other, so they're wondering like, can I trust you? What are you going to do for me? But when you're really clear with your intentions, like, hey, these are the things that we're going to do. Do you have any inputs? Is anything you want to say about it? This is going to clear all the misunderstandings up. You know, and you can apply this to not just, you know, your work. You can apply this to how you communicate with your friends, how you communicate with your partner. Making your thoughts well known to them instead of expecting them to read your mind is such an important tool that I think people do not practice enough. Let me tell you that people are so preoccupied with what's going on with their lives that they're not really paying attention to what's going on in yours. So the simple act of letting them know like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about this? Don't try to impose your thoughts on them, of course. Just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think about it? It's going to instantly make things a lot better. I hope you guys are enjoying the content up to this point, and if you did, don't forget to smash that like button for me. It's really going to help out the channel. I'm kind of experimenting a little bit more with my expertise in the medical field, as well as how I communicate with people, you know, all the skills that I've gained over the years, instead of simply focusing so much on finances. Let me know if that works with you. If there's different topics you want to talk about, make sure you leave it down in the comments below, and let's get back into this video, yeah? So step number 4 is don't take anything personally. Now, I'm very proud of this skill that I actually built, because I find that many people get thrown off with that first interaction not being very optimal. So what I mean to say by this is when you're finally talking with someone else, they might be, you know, rude, they might say something that is inappropriate that you don't really resonate with, right? And instantly you're going to label that person as a bad person, as someone that you don't really like, and it's going to affect all your future interactions with them. But what you need to understand is that most often than not, people are rude or people are saying things that they don't like, not really directed at you, but more so directed at the situation they're in. They're probably frustrated about something that's going on. They're trying to solve a specific problem and they don't really know you that well yet. So maybe it's just their personality. So what I like to focus instead is on the problem itself. I don't take anything personally. If someone is rude to me, I don't think they're being rude to me. I think they're just being frustrated at a certain situation. At the end of the day, you cannot really control what the other person is going to say, but you can control how you react to what that person is saying. And this is an extremely important tool if you're trying to build trust, build rapport with someone else. Me working in the medical field, just because someone is unpleasant to work with, someone who, you know, is a little more rude, doesn't mean I can simply kick them to the curb, right? I need to find a way to connect with them despite going through all these problems. However, the problem with this is that it takes a lot of practice, because we all have an ego, right? And when someone is rude to us or they say something that we don't like, our instant reaction is to get defensive about it and to actually lash back out. But you have to try to hold this in. Try to understand, in the grand scheme of things, whatever they're saying to you doesn't really matter. It only matters what you respond to them and whether you're able to direct the conversation so that you can start building rapport and trust between them. So try to understand where they're coming from, understand that they're not trying to attack you and you're on the same team. That there is step number 4. Now, for the 5th and most powerful step, in my opinion, is to simply be more vulnerable. Now, trust as a whole happens when both sides are able to be more vulnerable to one another. The problem, however, is a lot of us have a wall put in front of us. We want to protect ourselves, we don't like to share too much. So it only makes sense that if you break down your walls first, the other person will be more inclined to actually let go of their defenses and break down their own walls. So to just give you guys a perspective of what I mean by this is, of course, I work in the medical field and a lot of my patients are elderly. They've been living an independent life their whole time, and suddenly they came over to the hospital with an injury. they broke a bone, or maybe they had a stroke, something worse like that, and now they can't do the simple act of just walking to the restroom and doing their business. Now this can be very degrading, very humiliating for the person, right? And they feel very vulnerable. So what I do to build my rapport, to build my trust with that person, is to be vulnerable myself, to let them know like, hey, you know, I'm not perfect either. Sometimes I make mistakes. I'm still trying to figure things out, and you know, that's all okay. And the simple act of just letting them know that, you know, you don't have to get everything perfect, that I'm not expecting you to get anything perfect, that I'm still figuring things out as well, is going to let their guard down. I know this kind of sounds paradoxical because you as the professional want to make sure that you know everything correctly, you know, you're going to get everything 100% right, but people want to know that you're a human being, that you can make mistakes too, that you're okay with that you're not some sort of deity that's going to, you know, get everything right all at once. They want to know that you're just like them, you're going through struggles as well, and this is going to help them connect with you a little bit better. So this applies of course to your relationships as well, to your friends. The more that you're able to be more vulnerable with another person without actually feeling that you're giving away too much, that there is going to get people to trust you so much easier. And it's really a hack that I use to get the majority of my patients to trust me a lot more. So to summarize the video, the 5 steps that I use to build more trust with people is: number 1, to put yourself in another person's shoes, to actively listen to their problems. Number 2, to use the terminology of we instead of I. Number 3, to be very, very clear and sincere with my intentions. Number 4, to never take anything personally. And number 5, just simply be more vulnerable when you're communicating with someone else. Now these are all little tips and tricks that I've used on a day-to-day basis in my medical field to actually build trust and rapport with all my patients. And trust is so important to build with just that first interaction with someone else. So I really hope that some of these things can help you out as well to better connect with the people in your lives. So that's about it for the video. I really hope that you enjoyed the content, and if you did, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys enjoyed the content, go ahead and check out this video over here for more, and I will see you guys in the very next one. Take care. Peace.